Welcome, everybody, to the Headless Giant podcast. I got my buddy Nick here with me tonight, and we're going over some emails that you've sent in to Uncle Headless's mystical mailbag.
Mystical mailbag. I like that. Mystical.
So, this is a response to one of the last ones I read. It says, this is Gareth Turner. He's the one with I believe it's the ones from the UK. So he says, I really need to proofread my work. Thanks for reading the last two experiences. What you said about disassociating parts of ourselves is very interesting. Would love to be on the show if possible. Got an interesting animal totem. In a protected wood in Dartmoor, UK, me and a friend spent the night. A brief history first. I was drawn to this wood for no normal reason other than a longing for years before, and after some research, discovered it was an SSSI, or Site of the Specific Scientific Interest, which carries a penalty of $1,000 a day if caught in the wood. What?
Yeah.
I had been in a few times before, and it was enchanted AF. And so I took a friend who would appreciate such an unspoilt place, and as it is protected, it has zero visitors, so it is really pristine for a modern England. Basically, to ourselves, although a danger of getting caught, so we had to be quiet. We set up a fire, and part of the wood designated an ordnance survey map as an ancient fort. It consisted of a huge rammed earthwork in a circle. It had a shallow moat, and most strikingly, the trees were, It had a shallow moat, and most strikingly, there were trees in the fort to the outside. Those outside were noticeably younger than those inside the mound fort. We had made a small fire as we did not want to be noticed, even though we were very deep in the wood. It was pitch black out for the firelight. Out of nowhere came the sound of numerous hooves galloping. It was an unmistakable sound. Me and my friend grabbed our axes and waited. It was nerve-wracking, the absolute silence and the hoof strikes, and then the sound of hooves departing and reducing in noise. We both looked at each other and didn't know what to say. The woodland was so dense with trees that the number of animals needed to make that noise wouldn't have been able to approach like the noise pertained to. It was a visitation, a gift. My friend doesn't like to think about it, just brushes it off as nothing. For me, it was a welcome to the woods. Yet it was mine to find in the first place, so passed my friend by as I don't know what. It was very clear that I was completely weird experience to have, regardless of the dense woodland. Dartmoor itself is in southwest UK, a higher energy place. So much myth and a lot of granite standing stones from BC all over. What do you think of that, the mysterious ghost riders?
I found it interesting that he mentioned the granite stone at the end. That always seems to be a commonality. Well, not always, but it seems to pop up a lot. Things that I've seen, I don't know if it's just made for TV theories, but it's I've seen that on ghost, type shows and paranormal shows. Running water and granite seem to be a thing sometimes.
I've been to places kind of like that. You can definitely tell they're enchanted. There was one in Austin. I used to live just south of the Hill Country. Hill Country just kind of pops up out of nowhere. But just before that Hill Country is this little section of, I guess, subdivision called Occult. And the Highway 35 goes right over top of the area, and there's a bunch of bridges. Well, really close to one of the bridges, close to Dick Nichols Park, there is, because at Dick Nichols Park, there's a bunch of caves. And again, back to that limestone, right? These are limestone caves at the park that are really, really sketchy. Like, I wouldn't try and get in there. And I try to get in everywhere, like they are very tight. I've seen videos of people getting into them. Ooh, man, like just watching them, it looks like they're getting into their own graves. It's that tight to get in, but they say, oh, it opens up a few feet back. But anyways, it's really close to that Dick Nichols Park area, but it's a little bit past the park. You got to go all the way back to the end of it. And just off to the left, near to one of these bridges, is this stone circle, right? And this stone circle has a bunch of Spanish moss hanging in it, and nothing grows around this stone circle. It looks like it might have been a campfire site at one time. but nothing grows there. And I remember I was back there with one of my friends one time. I was just showing them around because, these places are fucking cool. And the wind was blowing towards us, right? And there was some kind of a blanket or something stuck up in a tree. And I remember the blanket was blowing away from us as the wind was coming. So there was strange happenings going on with the wind there. And you just get this eerie feeling like, what is this place? Why is it completely clear in this area, But I loved to play in the woods like that back when I was a kid. And it was just,
Oh yeah, I was huge with going to the
out.
parks when I was a kid. Yeah, it's funny. It always did seem like I don't know if it was like mystical to me, but there was a park called Hidden Pond Park by me when I was a child. I used to go there all the time with my father. It always seemed like the most like amazing shit to me. And like the place was so big that it's just like every time you saw a new area, it was just like, ooh. But I kind of get like what they were saying. Like there's been times where I've been like in certain places where it almost even seems like the atmosphere like kind of lightens up. Like when you walk into it or see it, you almost feel like lighter or something changes or some sort of energetic change.
Oh yeah. There's places like that, they're all around us, and yet we don't take them as seriously as, the ancients did. Those were sites of power to the ancients. To us, they're like a little mild curiosity, probably because we're not living outside, basically. But once you get into it, once you can feel it, I think there's so many deeper levels you can find at places like that,
A lot of times, whenever I felt that too, it's always in a place that like normally doesn't have humans there. Like, does that have anything to do with it?
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe a portal, some sort of a bridge area. Like I remember this place, it definitely felt like there were some other entities just hanging out at this one spot, because it wasn't just the trees wouldn't grow in the circle. It was like nothing would grow in the circle. And
That's wild.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of ground cover in the springtime in Texas. We get bluebells and they just cover everything. It's just like a carpet of bluebells everywhere. Bluebells all outside this place, but once you come into it, everything on the ground is dead. It looks like it was freshly burned, but it looked like it was freshly burned for all the years that I lived there. So there was nothing growing there. It was crazy.
It was like a small little nuclear bomb that just did that. It was like a radiation spill. I have noticed twice now. I wouldn't consider it maybe. Well, I guess it would be a cult, but like there was some sort of like Marian apparition and some sort of cult that I had covered or was looking into that I had noticed both of them did have like this thing where a circle of trees that they did their stuff in. So that sounds interesting. When you mentioned that, that's what I thought about. I'm sure that may not be the issue, but I would just wonder like the circle of trees if it means something to some people. They use it for some certain reasons.
Right. Well, I think there's a reason why the Christian churches were built on top of the pagan churches. And it wasn't just to cover up the pagan churches. It was to, start using the same kind of power. Because the more you get into the Christian histories and see how many crossovers there are, and when you learn about the Greek and Latin languages, you find out that the gods were put into the language. So even the Bible itself is full of these gods, because it's all their attributes and all the rest of this stuff. And then when you find out about sort of the pagan undertones of, the chapels and everything else, it's like, how could it not be? We're just sort of cut off from that kind of knowledge nowadays. I don't think we are emotionally. We can still feel it, So this is what I got from Joe Ferguson. He's writing back with another dream. He says, "Hey guys, it's Joe writing you back with the other dream I had, probably around the same time. This is the guy who had the Marian apparition dream with the pond and the fish and the horses.
The chariot.
Right. In this dream, I remember I was in a farm next to this fence, like the one they found Matthew Shepard's body on. That was always a haunting picture to me. Do you remember that?
No, I don't even know who Matthew Shepard is. I'll look it up while you're talking.
Okay. I do not know what they are called. There was this mud pit, but it had more water than mud. So I guess like a murky bog. So I'm there with what you might think of as an African witch doctor, the stereotypical shirtless, muddy, white faced man in a loincloth with a bone through his nose. And there is to show me the ritual of how flying pigs catch their prey. So a little bit later, a flying pig comes to the water body and it flies straight up into the air. The witch doctor shaman instructs me to go under the water so that I can witness the event. So I stick my head in the bog and I see the top of the mud and start squirming. Now, if you've ever watched like nature shows, they have a camera under the water so you can imagine what it looked like. So I'm watching the mud start to wriggle and the pig shoots straight down into the water and it penetrates the mud like hundreds of snakes start coming up. And the pig just starts gobbling them up. And honestly, I don't remember much after that. But like the Marion dream, this one has stuck with me, especially that part. Thanks again. So the pig is hunting snakes in the mud of this thing, the flying pigs. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I like how the guy had a bone through his nose too.
I hate to do it, but I got to take it back to the Greek again. So when Perseus cut the head off of Medusa, Pegasus came flying out of the neck hole along with a much more mysterious character. And this was Pegasus's twin brother. And this was a golden sword. And the golden sword can also appear as a pig. And his name was Chryseus. And so this Chryseus character is kind of like a universal soul. Like it's never really obvious that it's there, but it's kind of like in the background as being sort of like, I don't know, sort of a character in the background that just sort of pops up every time there's a battle or something. This Chryseus type energy pops up. And so Chryseus, this pig / sword, and I'm seeing that as being related to the snakes again. Because like if you take the tetramorph of the Catholic Church, the 4 different angels in one, he's got a sword it's supposed to be like Michael, but he's got a sword that's all wavy like a snake. Right? So the pig, the snake, and this mud hole having something to do with maybe a kid who's got AIDS. Matthew Shepard's the guy. Like
that's right. Yeah. It was that was I noticed it was a gay crime or whatever they call it. I forgot a hate crime because he was gay.
Right. So the image that I see, they always show the place where they found Matthew Shepard, which was on this barbed wire fence. Right. And so to me, these dreams sort of have a kind of a quality to it of like kind of a foreboding sense, because you've got the murkiness of the water, which is sort of like uncertainty, can't see through it. But there's also stuff in the water, like snakes.
Yeah.
And then in combination with this Matthew Shepard type environment, sort of like in the wilderness, and being guided by the shaman, right? So the shaman guy is sort of like showing you what you need to see from this dream, and it has to do with flying pigs. When pigs fly, some sort of improbability about it.
It made me think. I mean, the pig. I don't know what's up with that. It made me think of Pink Floyd with their flying pigs. But I mean, the dark. I guess like the mud and the snakes. Very much to me is very like forgot his name. Very Cthulhu like, or H.P. Lovecraft kind of. It made me think of stuff like that, or stuff tied with like maybe the chaos of the abyss and shit like that. Just symbolism like that. I kind of thought of to an extent.
Well, I think the reason why Chryseus was this pig was because of the ironworking capabilities of the Gauls and the Celts. Because the Gauls and the Celts were the first ones to have chainmail armor. And they actually sacked Rome in like 3-something BC. They were the first ones to sack Rome. And so they had the best iron armor and best iron blades at that time, even though they preferred to fight naked. And their symbol was always the boar. So the pig and the sword, pig iron. I don't know if you've ever heard of pig iron, but it's a pretty interesting.
Yeah. I've heard people use that for at the gym for weights.
Right.
People call it pig iron. Yeah.
Right. So the pig iron itself is unrefined. They don't carbonize it, so it's not steel yet. It's It's the most basic iron you can get. It hasn't been refined at all. But the idea there is that it comes from the bogs. Back to the bogs. So bog iron is how they would do this. And what they do is they would look for these springs, and the springs would have a lot of iron in them. And so the iron would get absorbed by the bacteria that goes around the spring. So as you're watching the little bubbles come up, you can actually collect a lot of that clay, and it's got the bodies of these bacteria that have died, and you put that into a furnace and you get iron out. So the very first iron that you got was from the bog, pig iron. Something having to do with snakes, and again, back to that Chrysius kind of character. So it's interesting. I like how interconnected these things are when you have just a little bit of context.
You think of the snakes as our veins going down our arms, carrying iron in it.
There you go. You got that too.
Yeah, that was a very interesting dream.
All right. So this one is Double J. He says, I was patrolling an NY City hotel hallway looking to bust some ghosts. We have never tested our equipment, so it was the first attempt at using a nuclear reactor backpack to catch a ghost. I guess it's just ghost busting.
I don't know. Is it? You said Double J? Is that JJ Vance?
Yes, it is. You got me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what did he troll you? You should at least read it. When you said Double J, I was like, wait, I think that's JJ when he emails me.
It could be a dream or something. Anyways, he goes, I was away from the rest of my team patrolling one of the upper floors of the hotel by myself. I figured it might as well light up a cigarette. Just as I started taking a puff of my smoke, this disembodied green spirit came out of nowhere. Luckily, I was quick enough to attack it before it attacked me. However, the laser beam from my nuclear reactor backpack did quite a bit of damage. Maybe I will catch one next time. Hope you enjoyed. Good luck. Godspeed, JJ Vance. You son of a bitch. I know you're watching right now, JJ.
Yeah, he is. He just commented too on my side. He said, oh, my mistake. I conflated my life with the story of Ghostbusters.
That is a frequent, mistake that a lot of people make, is confusing their own life with the Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah. Speaking of Ghostbusters, believe it or not, there's an interview out there where you can find Dan Aykroyd actually admitting that movie was supposed to be made about, it was based on occult ideas.
Right. You should
say that actually.
You should read the first draft of it, because he put so much more occultism in there, and they're like, we can't do this. This is too much.
He said that. He said that when he first gave it to him, they were like, no, because one, they said it was going to be way too expensive because it was nonstop from the beginning to end, tons of stuff. And then for some reason, they were like, we'll do it if you get, who was it, Rick Moranis or whatever, if you do the movie with him and rewrite it. So, I mean, it already sounded like they were screwing him anyway and bringing somebody else in. But yeah, he did say that it had a lot of occult, and the original was way different.
I'll tell you what, Dan Aykroyd's on a whole different level. He's on all these UFO documentaries. I remember he was a big fan of The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall.
Yeah.
That's one of his favorite books. There's just so much stuff there. I'd love to pick his brain sometime.
Yeah. Definitely interesting stuff with the whole Ghostbusters thing. Oh,
indeed. Let me see. Do we have any more? I think that's it. So I'm gonna put my
great experiences yourself.
I'm gonna put my ticker back up there. So guys, if you want to have your emails read, you can always email me at the Headless Giant Podcast at gmail.com. I have a couple of ones that I got in Twitter.
Oh, nice.
So, do you remember Raven Kiefer?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Raven sent me one. We got to get him back up.
I was gonna say he probably has a bunch of crazy stories.
Oh yeah, dude.
See that from Raven.
He says, enjoyed the mailbag show with NYP. Here's one from my earlier years. I was 23, 24 years old and had times where I felt the need for speed. I had a truck, snowmobile, dirt bike, and a fast street bike. Speed for all kinds of weather. One night, I decided I was taking the street bike out for a run Went out, sat down on the seat and started it. And then this feeling ran down my spine and into my gut. Danger. I shut off the bike, lit a smoke, and started to go back inside. Internal dialogue. Nah, that's BS. Started back up, rolled down the driveway, and the feeling hit again. I stopped and shook off the feeling and then rolled down to the first major intersection. That feeling came on like fire. I turned around and rolled back towards the house. The closer I got to the house, the further the feeling went away. So I went past the house and toward the 4-lane rather than the river road, got up to a decent speed and cruised past a couple of ramps, a couple off ramps, and then that feeling came back, heavy and urgent. Pulled up next ramp and almost went across the overpass and back home. I let it up. I talked myself into taking off, cranking out the speed and through the gears. About 5 miles out, the spokes on the front wheel blew apart and the forks jammed up, dropping down to the pavement, flipping me over the bars, turning the bike down the lanes. I braced for it. I tucked chin and pulled my arms in armored gear and even anticipated the pain on the way. Somehow I stopped sliding and was in the grass off the shoulder of the road, not on the road. Felt like something caught me and set me down pretty gently. Think catching a baseball and glide to tag a runner. Car coming up behind me saw this and stopped on the shoulder. Driver and passenger both said it looked like something's redirected me from the roadway to the grass off the shoulder and then set me down like a bowling ball going down the alley. I've always thought that that entity, my highest self, guardian or whatever nature, that gave me those warnings and almost turned me around was the one that got my flying body across 2 lanes and into the grass. Lots of bruises, torn armored riding coat, cracked helmet, but not breaks, and nothing in the grass where I landed. Mehiona forever. So that was his story. That's pretty intense, man.
That's like a real story?
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Man. We had that one last week of the guy who was falling down as a kid and didn't exactly hit the floor the way that he thought he should. So that's a pretty common thing. It's like guardian angel type stuff.
Something happens to you, you're like, yo, I should have gotten fucked up from that.
Or way worse, you know?
Yo, when I was younger, no lie, I was maybe 18. I was driving down the road and I was dating somebody at the time. So it was me and my girlfriend at the time in the car. And it was snowing out or it had snowed, whatever. I hit a patch of black ice going down the road in the car. And I wasn't even going that fast. The car somehow spun around, flipped upside down, and smacked into a tree upside down. And like neither one of us had our fucking seatbelts on because we were literally like a few blocks away from where we left. And dude, nothing happened to us. And my steering wheel was literally bent. I don't know if I bent it forward or bent it in, but I literally bent my steering wheel too, holding it.
Jeez.
Yo, we got out of the car crawling through the front window. And yo, the only reason I had a scratch on me from getting out of the car after it crashed. It was the weirdest fucking thing. We're like, yo, what the cops were even like, yo, everybody there was like, I cannot believe that you two just walked out of this car like this. Yeah. Yo, the trunk, it flipped over. The trunk was in the back seat.
Jeez.
I shit you not. It was fucking wild to see this car upside down on its roof with the trunk in the back seat, the windows broken, and just like 2 people just sitting there like, fuck, what the fuck just happened? Nothing wrong with this at all.
Wow.
Yeah. That shit happened in slow motion too, especially going upside down. I was just like, oh, fuck. Yeah, wild shit, dude.
Jeez. I've never had anything like that happen. I have been in quite a few car accidents, but none where I've gotten hurt and none were my fault.
Yeah.
And it's like, it had to happen to me. One of those sort of situations. So one time I was on my way to work and I'm sitting at a red light. And then all of a sudden I look in my rearview mirror and I see this lady going way too fast. And she just smacks my back, just completely destroys the back end of the car. And, I get out. And it turns out she had been drinking. And so, yeah, so that, should have been a better settlement, but I didn't have gap insurance. So all the settlement did was go fucking gap insurance. Who tells you about gap insurance? Guys,
Right? Yeah.
if you get insurance, get gap insurance. And then there was another time when I was on the road. This is back in Baltimore again. And this guy, I'm in my company truck, right? And so, I'm sitting on the left side of the road. And I'm far enough off the shoulder to where he shouldn't hit me. This is right before that bridge that just got taken out.
Okay. The one that the boat ran into by accident?
By accident, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there. We're getting ready to do some guardrail work on it. And I feel this like slight bump in the back of the car. I'm like, what was that? Back of the vehicle. I'm like, what the fuck was that? I get out and I see that a minivan has just taken the entire driver's side off of the minivan, right? I barely felt it because, I'm in a big ass truck and I've got a flatbed on the back. I barely felt it at all. But this guy had can opened the entire driver's side of his minivan and took out his legs, and he was dying fast. He was dying fast. And so that was like, what the fuck? I barely even felt it. But he just slammed into me. I guess he was on cocaine and booze. So I thought I was in deep shit. But yeah, it's Baltimore. All these fucking people are on drugs or drinking all the time. So
I've seen some horrible videos from Baltimore.
Yeah. Well, I got another one here. This one is signed anonymous.
Oh, this one might be good.
So this lady is always walking in my peripherals. I think it's a ghost, right? And even wants to bend down when I want to bend down. And she does not realize she cannot help me pick up the paper plate. She's all right, though. And there's a dog that pops in every now and then. So I guess this is a haunting. And so signed anonymous. So I guess, you have residual hauntings in your house.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, people coming and going. I don't know. My haunting story is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might as well share it.
Go for it.
So I'm stuck in this 2-bedroom apartment, and it's highly depressing, my whole situation. And I talked to my landlord, and he tells me that the guy who lived here before me, he committed suicide. And he did it in the most brutal way imaginable.
You told me this. That's right.
He cut off his left arm, and he was almost all the way through before he died. So I'm here. It's a Saturday. It's the day after I've gotten off of work. There's nothing. I haven't done anything to cause this to hurt or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, I get this sharp pain coming from my pectoral muscle, like deep inside of this part of my my arm right here. And so it just gets worse and worse. And like I've still got the pictures of it. It swells up to an enormous size. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I go to the hospital, and they tell me that I've torn my pectoral muscle. And it's just agony. Like, I didn't do anything to tear it, but there it is. And so I get a hold of this guy named Chance Garden. He's got the Interverse podcast, and he does sound healings. And so he's doing a sound healing of the place. And he's like, yeah, there's a spirit there that is not happy, and he's fucking with you. So if anybody tells you that ghosts can't hurt you or whatever, it's probably because you're on a different emotional level than they are. But if you're matching their frequency, they can hurt the shit out of you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. That's exactly how it works. You have to be on each other's, kind of same wavelength.
Right. So once you match that frequency, then you might as well be a sock puppet for whatever they want to do. Any kind of trauma that comes out. But it went away after Chance did his thing, and I'm feeling better. I haven't overextended again. And it was like, as soon as Chance got done with the sound healing, which I highly recommend, if anybody is inclined, go check out Chance Garden Interverse podcast. He'll direct you to all that stuff. He's really good.
Yeah, Symbolic Studies is even giving him a shout out, saying you just did a show with him tonight. Oh wow, look at that. What's the odds of that?
Chance is the man.
You should get him on.
Yeah. He's who's that guy who's always popping in on us? He's the one with the really way out there analogies, and I forgot his name. We had him on the show a couple of times.
Oh, okay. Well, we've had him on the show?
Yeah.
Oh.
He always leaves the YouTube comments.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who we've had on the show. Slick Dissident?
Slick Dissident. There.
Yeah, that's what I thought, actually, when you first said that. Yeah.
Right. Slick's always going on the Universe podcast. And
yeah, Mario just said Gabe. I should just look at the chat. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, he works miracles. Give him a shout out, because he works the tuning forks, right? And so when you're using the tuning forks on somebody else's aura from hundreds of miles away, and you're really, really accurate, like, you don't have to tell the guy anything. He's gonna narrow in on your problem really quickly. He's that skilled. And I guess he was trained in the Elaine Musak. Her name is Music, and she's a sound healer. So come on. I mean,
yeah. Musak. That's funny.
But yeah, so let's see. That's about it. That's all I got. Do you have any more stories you want to?
No, I do have a good one, but I think I'll leave it for next week, just in case, run out of time there on that one. It gets a little bit short. I'll tell one of my stories, because it might take a little bit, but it's definitely an interesting one, and it scared the living shit out of me. So that will keep people to listen to next week. And also, I mean, and not to do Headless's job, but for real, anybody who's listening to the shows, both podcasts, but especially mine, please email Headless with any of your stories. It's weird, occult, paranormal, whatever. Just send it over.
I got a story too of when I went to the Moundsville prison. They had a haunted tour of the Moundsville prison. This is in Moundsville, West Virginia, which is right on that little panhandle sticking up from West Virginia. And it's right across the street from one of the biggest Adena mounds on the East Coast. So they say it's a pretty haunted place, and I've got some stories about that. So we'll do that next time. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Headless Giant's Magical Mystical Mailbag. Please email me with your stories. We'll put more of them on the air. Thank you for joining us, and signing out.